She ordered an escort for one night, but the man who came was a millionaire CEO in disguise. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. And now, let's return to our main character. Claire Morgan is sitting alone on the edge of her couch in a quiet downtown apartment. The kind of place that looks neat but feels temporary, like no one ever planned to stay long. The city outside hums at a low, distant volume, sirens far away, traffic moving without her, life continuing as if it never noticed she had stopped. The lamp beside her casts a warm circle of light, barely reaching the corners of the room. She stares at her phone, thumb hovering, heart beating a little faster than it should. Claire is not reckless. She is not desperate in the way movies like to exaggerate. She is simply tired, the kind of tired that settles into your bones after pretending to be strong for too long. Earlier that evening, she attended another social gathering where everyone smiled too brightly and asked what she did for a living as if it were a scorecard. She smiled back, answered politely, and left early, again. Back home now, silence presses in. She tells herself she just wants company, a human presence, a voice that answers back. After a long pause, she makes a decision that surprises even her. She opens an app, reads the description twice, sets clear boundaries with careful fingers. 1 hour. Conversation only. No expectations. She exhales and confirms. The phone buzzes once, softly, like it knows not to make a scene. Somewhere across the city, Ethan Cole reads the notification with a different kind of stillness. To the world, Ethan is the polished CEO of a billion-dollar company, a name that moves markets and fills rooms. Tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, he is undercover by choice, wearing worn jeans, a plain jacket, and a name that is not his own. He has done this before, stepped outside his glass towers to remember what it feels like to be unseen. It is not curiosity that drives him now, but fatigue. He has grown tired of introductions that start with his net worth and end with expectations. When he knocks on Claire's door, it is gentle, measured, respectful. Claire opens it cautiously and freezes for half a second. The man standing there looks ordinary in the most grounding way. No flash, no arrogance, just calm eyes and a posture that suggests patience. He introduces himself simply, voice low, steady. She steps aside and lets him in, noticing how he waits for her cue, how he does not look around like he owns the place. They sit across from each other, a polite distance between them, the room feeling smaller but warmer. Claire explains her rules again, apologetic without knowing why. Ethan listens without interrupting, nodding once, assuring her he understands. Something in his restraint eases her shoulders. Minutes pass. They talk about simple things, work frustrations, favorite late-night diners, the strange comfort of background noise. No one performs. No one impresses. For the first time in weeks, Claire laughs, surprised by the sound of it. Ethan notices, files the moment away quietly. He came here expecting to observe, to test, to confirm what he thinks he already knows about people. Instead, sitting across from Claire Morgan, he feels something unfamiliar begin to surface, something that has nothing to do with power, money, or control. And without realizing it, both of them step into a night that will change far more than either intended. Claire does not tell him everything, not at first. She keeps her voice casual, almost light, but there are gaps in her sentences where heavier truths live. She talks about her job, about long hours and polite smiles that never quite feel like her own. She mentions how the city can feel crowded and lonely at the same time, how some nights the noise outside her window makes the silence inside her head even louder. Ethan listens, really listens, in a way she is not used to. He does not glance at his phone. He does not rush her words. When she pauses, he does not jump in to fill the space. That alone feels like a gift. Claire finds herself explaining why she ordered company tonight, choosing each word carefully, afraid of sounding weak. She says she did not want to feel invisible for one more evening, that she needed proof she still existed beyond work emails and passing small talk. Ethan nods slowly, his expression steady, and says he understands more than she might think. He does not offer advice. He does not minimize her feelings. He simply says that loneliness does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks quiet. The honesty of that statement lands harder than she expects. Claire leans back, exhaling, her shoulders finally lowering an inch. Across from her, Ethan feels the familiar pull of observation giving way to something else. He came here wearing a role, a name that is not his, testing whether kindness exists without status. Yet the more Claire speaks, the less he feels like he is testing her, and the more he feels exposed himself. He tells her a version of his own story, carefully edited, stripped of titles and numbers. He says he has spent years chasing goals that never stayed satisfying for long, that success can be loud and empty at the same time. He talks about burnout without using the word, about waking up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. Claire studies him, noticing the faint tension in his jaw when he talks about expectations, the way his hands fold together as if keeping something contained. She asks if he is happy. The question hangs in the air, simple and dangerous. Ethan hesitates just long enough for the truth to show. He admits he does not know anymore. That answer feels heavier than any confession. Time moves quietly. The clock on the wall ticks past the half-hour mark without either of them acknowledging it. Claire offers him a glass of water, then tea, then realizes she is treating him like a guest, not a service. The thought makes her smile, embarrassed, but Ethan only mirrors it gently. She apologizes for the awkwardness. He tells her awkwardness is often just honesty without polish. Claire laughs again, softer this time, and something in her chest loosens. She mentions her last relationship without naming the hurt, just enough to explain why trust feels expensive now. She says she learned how quickly people leave when you stop being convenient. Ethan feels that sentence settle deep because he recognizes it from the other side. He has watched people arrive with interest and leave with demands. In that moment, the distance between their worlds feels thinner than he expected. Claire checks the time and mentions she will pay for the full hour even if they end early. Ethan looks at her, surprised, and asks why she would do that. She shrugs and says fairness matters to her, even when no one is watching. The answer stays with him. It is not dramatic. It is not performative. It is quiet integrity. As the evening continues, Ethan realizes he has stopped keeping track of his role altogether. He is no longer thinking about what this encounter proves. He is thinking about how rare it feels to sit across from someone who asks nothing from him. Claire, meanwhile, senses that this night is already different from what she expected. She ordered presents, but she found understanding. Neither of them knows it yet, but the foundation of everything that follows is being laid right here, in this unremarkable apartment, with two strangers choosing to be honest for one evening. The hour they agreed on begins to slip quietly toward its end, and Claire notices it before Ethan does. She glances at the clock, then back at him, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. She says they do not have to rush, that she knows how the arrangement works, but there is a hesitation in her voice that makes Ethan look up fully. He asks what she is thinking, not pressing, just opening the door. Claire admits that she feels strange, in a good way, like she invited someone into her space expecting a transaction and somehow ended up with a conversation that feels real. She laughs softly and says she did not plan for that. Ethan smiles, but inside, the words land with weight. This is the moment he usually waits for, the shift where expectations surface, where boundaries blur. He watches closely now, not as a man enjoying company, but as someone testing whether the pattern will repeat. Claire stands and walks to the small table where her purse rests. She takes it out, sets it between them, and says she wants to pay him before time runs out so it does not feel awkward later. Ethan tells her there is no rush. She opens the purse anyway, pulls out her wallet, and then pauses. She looks at him, really looks, as if seeing him not as a service, but as a person who showed up when she needed someone. She says something unexpected. She says she is grateful, not for the company itself, but for the way he treated her like she mattered. She hands him the agreed amount, then adds more, stopping herself halfway. Her fingers hover, conflicted. Ethan waits, heart steady but alert. This is the test he knows too well. Claire exhales and puts the extra bills back. She says she changed her mind. She says she does not want him to stay longer because of money. She says she would rather end the night honestly than blur something that feels clean. Ethan feels a quiet shock move through him. He nods, telling her he respects that and means it more than he expected. Claire apologizes again, for nothing in particular, then asks him if he is okay. The question is simple, almost casual, but it is the way she asks it, without obligation, without power, that catches him. He answers truthfully, saying yes, that he is fine, and realizes how rare it feels to say that without performance. The silence that follows is not heavy. It is reflective. Claire sits back down instead of ushering him out, as if neither of them is ready to end the moment just yet. She talks about how she learned to set boundaries the hard way, how saying no used to feel like failure, and how tonight felt like progress. Ethan listens, thinking about all the times people said yes to him for reasons that had nothing to do with choice. He realizes that this, right here, is the kind of moment he came looking for, proof that kindness and self-respect still exist when no one is watching. When the hour finally ends, Claire walks him to the door. There is no awkwardness, no regret, just a shared understanding that something meaningful happened without crossing any lines. As Ethan steps into the hallway, he feels the familiar weight of his disguise settle back into place, heavier now because he knows what honesty cost her. Claire closes the door and leans against it for a second, surprised by the calm in her chest. Neither of them knows it yet, but this quiet choice, this refusal to turn connection into currency, has already changed the direction of everything that comes next. The days that follow feel different. For both of them, even though they do not cross paths again right away. Claire returns to her routines. Early mornings, crowded sidewalks, the familiar rhythm of work, but something has shifted under the surface. She catches herself replaying the conversation in small moments, while waiting for coffee, while staring out a bus window, surprised by how much space one evening has taken up in her thoughts. It is not longing exactly, more like recognition. She realizes she felt seen without being evaluated, and that realization lingers. Meanwhile, Ethan moves through his world with a quiet restlessness. He steps back into conference rooms and glass offices, back into tailored suits and carefully chosen words, but the memory of Claire's apartment stays with him in sharp contrast. He thinks about how she asked if he was okay, how she chose fairness over convenience, how she refused to let money dictate the tone of the night. It unsettles him in a way quarterly reports never do. At work, he signs documents, leads meetings, answers questions with practiced confidence, yet finds himself distracted by something smaller and more personal. He begins to question the experiment he started. It was supposed to confirm his beliefs, not complicate them. A week passes before Claire receives a message she does not expect. It is from an unfamiliar number, polite and brief, asking if she would like to meet for coffee sometime. No pressure, no assumptions. There is no mention of the night, no reference to the arrangement. Just an invitation. She stares at the screen for a long moment, heart beating faster than it should over something so simple. She considers ignoring it, protecting the quiet progress she made that night, but curiosity wins. She agrees, choosing a small cafe near her office, public, safe, neutral. When Ethan arrives, dressed casually again, he feels a strange mix of anticipation and restraint. This time, there is no role to hide behind, even if his identity remains incomplete. They greet each other with a smile that feels more natural than planned. Over coffee, the conversation resumes easily, picking up threads left unfinished. They talk about books, about how routines can both save and trap you, about the pressure to always be available in a world that never slows down. Claire notices how he asks questions and waits for answers, how he does not steer the conversation toward himself. Ethan notices how she listens with equal care, how she never tries to impress him. The connection deepens, quietly, without spectacle. As the meeting ends, neither of them rushes to label it. There is an unspoken agreement to let whatever this is unfold at its own pace. As they part ways, Ethan watches Claire walk down the street, feeling the weight of his secret grow heavier. He knows the longer this continues, the more complicated the truth will become. Claire, walking back toward her office, feels lighter than she has in weeks, unaware of the full reality standing just behind her. Both of them sense that this is no longer a single night contained in memory. It is becoming a thread woven into their days, subtle but persistent, leading somewhere neither can fully see yet, but neither is ready to turn away from. By the third time they meet, The pattern is clear without either of them naming it. No late nights, no blurred boundaries, no rushing toward intimacy that would cheapen what is forming. Instead, there are walks after work, shared meals at places that do not care who you are as long as you pay the bill, conversations that stretch longer than planned because neither wants to be the first to leave. Claire begins to notice how Ethan never lets her pay for everything, but also never insists on covering it all, as if he is quietly correcting something inside himself. She respects that. It feels balanced, intentional. One evening, as they sit on a bench overlooking the river, Claire mentions how money has complicated past relationships for her, not because she wanted it, but because people assumed she did. She talks about being underestimated, about how kindness is often mistaken for weakness. Ethan listens with his hands clasped loosely, jaw tight for a moment. He asks her what she values most in a partner, and she answers without hesitation. She says honesty, consistency, and respect. She says she would rather struggle with someone real than be comfortable with someone who performs affection. The words land heavier than she knows. Ethan feels the weight of his secret press harder against his chest. He realizes this is no longer an experiment that can remain harmless. He is not observing her values anymore. He is being measured by them. The following week brings a quiet turning point. Claire has a rough day, nothing dramatic, just the slow accumulation of small disappointments that leave her drained. Ethan suggests dinner at her place, simple takeout, no effort required. She agrees. They sit at her kitchen counter, sharing food from the same containers, laughing at nothing important. At one point, Claire reaches for her purse, almost out of habit, and Ethan gently stops her, saying he has got it this time. She pauses, then looks at him carefully and says she appreciates the gesture, but she does not want money to become a language between them. She insists on splitting it. There is no accusation in her voice, just clarity. Ethan nods and agrees immediately, feeling a strange mix of relief and shame. Later, as the night winds down, Claire leans back against the counter and studies him, as if deciding something. She tells him she wants to be clear. She says she likes him, but she will not move forward if there are games or hidden intentions. She says she has worked too hard to build boundaries to ignore her instincts now. The room goes quiet. Ethan feels the moment sharpen. This is the true test, more than the night they met, more than the money she refused. This is about truth. He almost tells her everything right then, almost lets the carefully built disguise fall apart. Instead, he asks for a little time, not to deceive her, but to figure out how to be honest without hurting her. Claire watches his face, searching for something. After a long moment, she nods. She says she can respect that, but only once. She tells him she will not wait forever for clarity. As Ethan leaves that night, he knows the clock has started. Claire closes the door behind him, feeling both hopeful and cautious, unaware of the scale of the truth standing just beyond her reach. Both of them sense that whatever comes next will either deepen what they have built or unravel it completely, and neither of them can pretend otherwise anymore. The reveal does not come in a quiet moment, and it does not come from Ethan's mouth. It arrives wrapped in lights and polished floors, in a room full of people who seem to know exactly where they belong. Claire only attends the event because her supervisor insists, calling it a networking opportunity that could not be missed. She borrows a simple dress, tells herself it is just another professional obligation, and walks into the downtown hotel ballroom already counting the minutes until she can leave. The space is filled with low music, soft laughter, and conversations that orbit around titles and influence. Claire keeps to the edge of the room, holding a glass of water, feeling that familiar sense of being slightly out of place. She is halfway through deciding to slip out early when the lights dim and the host steps onto the stage. The microphone hums briefly, then the room quiets. The host begins speaking about innovation, leadership, and vision, words that usually blur together for Claire, until a name cuts through the noise with sudden clarity. Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cawthorne Group. The words land like a physical force. Claire feels her chest tighten as the room erupts into applause. She turns toward the stage just as the man she knows as Ethan steps into the spotlight, composed, confident, unmistakable. The same eyes, the same calm presence, now framed by a tailored suit and a reputation that fills the room before he even speaks. Her mind races, replaying every conversation, every careful omission, Every moment he chose not to correct her assumptions. Ethan scans the audience automatically, then his gaze finds her. For a fraction of a second, the practiced confidence slips, replaced by something raw and unmistakable. Recognition. The applause fades into background noise as Claire stands frozen, the truth assembling itself too quickly to ignore. He did not just keep a secret. He built a connection on a false foundation. The speech continues, but she does not hear it. She is already walking away, moving through the crowd with purpose she did not know she had. Outside the ballroom, the hallway feels too quiet, the carpet absorbing her footsteps. She stops near a large window overlooking the city, trying to steady her breathing. She tells herself not to cry, not here, not over someone who turned her vulnerability into an experiment. Footsteps approach behind her, measured and familiar. Ethan says her name softly. She turns, and the control she worked so hard to build snaps. She asks him how long he planned to lie, how many versions of himself she was supposed to meet before earning the truth. Ethan does not interrupt. He does not defend himself. He listens as she speaks, anger and hurt threading through every word. When she finishes, the silence between them is heavy but clean. Ethan tells her the truth at last, not the polished version, but the human one. He says he hid because he was afraid of being wanted for the wrong reasons. He admits he crossed a line by deciding for her what she could handle. Claire shakes her head, telling him fear does not excuse manipulation. She says trust, once broken, does not reset just because the truth finally shows up dressed well. She leaves him standing there, the applause from the ballroom echoing faintly behind them, and walks into the night with clarity she did not expect. Ethan watches her go, knowing that no amount of success can protect him from the cost of this choice. The reveal is complete, and nothing between them will ever be simple again. The days after the reveal feel heavier than anything that came before, not because of what was said, but because of what was lost. Claire throws herself into work, longer hours, fewer pauses, filling her schedule so there is no space left for reflection. Yet even in meetings and deadlines, the memory surfaces without warning, the way Ethan listened, the way he respected her boundaries before breaking the biggest one of all. The betrayal does not feel loud or dramatic. It feels quiet and personal, like realizing the ground beneath you was never solid. She tells herself she should have known, that no one that attentive comes without a reason, and the thought makes her angry all over again. Meanwhile, Ethan faces a reckoning he cannot outsource or delay. For the first time in years, success offers no distraction. The numbers still rise, the board still approves, the company still praises his leadership, but none of it touches the part of him that feels hollow. He replays the moment in the hallway again and again, the look in Claire's eyes when the truth clicked into place. Not shock, not awe, just disappointment. That is what stays with him. He realizes that by hiding his identity, he did not protect himself from being used. He denied someone else the right to choose. That realization cuts deeper than any public criticism ever has. He considers reaching out, drafting messages he never sends, knowing apologies without change would only insult her further. Instead, he looks inward, tracing the path that led him here. He acknowledges the pattern, the way he built tests instead of trust, control instead of connection. Weeks pass. Claire begins to notice small shifts in her own thinking. The anger softens into clarity. She understands now that what hurt most was not his wealth or his status, but the imbalance of information, the power he held without her consent. She resolves not to let that experience harden her, but she also refuses to romanticize it. Trust, she decides, must be mutual or it is not trust at all. Ethan, guided by the same clarity, takes action quietly. He withdraws his company from a discreet investment he once overlooked, a service that profits from loneliness rather than addressing it. He directs resources toward programs focused on mental health support and ethical companionship, insisting they operate transparently, without branding or press. No one outside a small circle knows why. He does not need them to. The change is not about image. It is about accountability. One afternoon, months later, Claire receives a letter, not an email, not a call, but a handwritten note delivered without fanfare. There is no request for forgiveness inside it, no explanation that asks her to understand. Ethan simply acknowledges the harm he caused, names it clearly, and states what he has done to ensure he does not repeat it. He ends by telling her she owes him nothing, not even a response. Claire reads it twice, surprised by the absence of persuasion. She does not rush to reply. She sits with it, measuring it against his actions, not his words. For the first time since the night everything unraveled, she feels something loosen inside her. Not reconciliation, but recognition. Across the city, Ethan waits without expectation, understanding that growth does not guarantee redemption. Both of them continue forward separately, changed in ways neither anticipated, aware that some connections end not because they lacked feeling, but because they demanded integrity neither could ignore. The shift begins quietly, not with a dramatic interruption, but with a choice Claire makes on an ordinary afternoon. She stands outside a community center she almost did not enter, holding an invitation she debated throwing away. It is not from Ethan directly, but from an organization she recognizes, one that offers counseling resources and support groups for people navigating loneliness and emotional burnout. She remembers the letter, the absence of excuses, the way he named the harm without asking her to soften it. Curiosity, careful and contained, draws her inside. The space is modest, warm, nothing like the rooms Ethan usually occupies. There are pamphlets neatly arranged, volunteers greeting visitors with unpolished sincerity. Claire listens as a coordinator explains the program, how it was funded, how the goal is not profit or image, but access. Ethan's name is not mentioned until she asks, and even then, it is spoken without reverence, just fact. She feels something settle in her chest, not forgiveness, but confirmation that the change is real. Later that evening, as she prepares to leave, she notices Ethan standing near the exit, not approaching, not performing, simply waiting as if prepared to leave unseen. When their eyes meet, there is no surprise, only acknowledgement. He does not step forward until she does. When they speak, it is not about the past at first. They talk about the program, about the people it serves, about the quiet power of showing up without being asked. Ethan listens again, the way he did in her apartment months ago, but this time without a disguise between them. Claire finally addresses what sits unspoken. She tells him she came because she needed to see whether his actions matched his words. She says trust is rebuilt through consistency, not gestures. Ethan nods, telling her he understands that nothing he does erases what he chose before. He tells her he does not expect her to return to him, only to know that he is no longer hiding from himself. The honesty feels different now, grounded rather than persuasive. Claire studies him, aware of the power imbalance that once defined them, and noticing how deliberately he steps back from it now. She tells him she is not ready to pretend everything is fine. She tells him she is open to starting again slowly, without secrets, without tests, without assumptions. Ethan agrees immediately, not relieved, but resolved. They walk out together into the evening air, not touching, not rushing, just sharing space. The city feels less sharp, less demanding. Claire realizes she is not giving him a second chance out of hope or nostalgia, but out of alignment with her own values. She believes in accountability followed by change, not perfection. Ethan understands that redemption is not a destination, but a practice. As they part ways that night, there is no promise made beyond honesty and patience. Yet both of them feel the weight of something new taking shape, not the fragile spark of a first connection, but the steadier glow of something earned. For the first time since the reveal, the future does not feel like a threat to be managed, but a path that can be walked carefully, together, one truthful step at a time. The months that follow are not rushed, and that is what makes them different from anything either of them has known before. Claire and Ethan build something quietly, through shared mornings and unremarkable evenings, through conversations that circle back to honesty again and again until it becomes habit. There are no grand announcements, no sweeping gestures meant to impress. Instead, there is consistency. Ethan shows up when he says he will. He tells the truth even when it is uncomfortable. He listens when Claire draws lines and never tests whether they will bend. Claire, in turn, allows herself to trust gradually, measuring his actions against time rather than words. She watches how he treats people who cannot offer him anything in return, how he steps out of rooms rather than dominate them, how he corrects himself without being prompted. One evening, they return to the same riverfront bench where they once talked about values and boundaries, the city lights reflecting softly on the water. Ethan does not plan a speech. He does not kneel or draw attention. He simply tells her that knowing her changed the way he understands power, that love without transparency is just another form of control, and that he wants a life built on shared ground, not hidden advantage. Claire listens, feeling the weight of the journey behind them, the night they met, the reveal, the distance, the work it took to stand here honestly. She tells him she chooses him not because he changed for her, but because he chose to change for himself. They decide together, without spectacle, to move forward fully, not as a fairy tale resolution, but as a partnership rooted in accountability and care. In the years that follow, their lives intertwine in ways that feel natural rather than forced. Claire continues her work, her voice growing steadier as she advocates for balance and fairness in spaces that once intimidated her. Ethan reshapes his leadership quietly, modeling transparency and empathy, without branding it as virtue. When people ask about their story, they do not dramatize it. They say they met at a moment when both were learning what they would no longer accept. The night that began as a transaction becomes a reminder of how easily connection can be misunderstood and how powerful it can be when reclaimed with integrity. Standing together one evening in Claire's apartment, now no longer temporary, they look out at the same city that once felt isolating. It hums with possibility now, not because circumstances changed overnight, but because they did. The story does not end with wealth or status or rescue. It ends with two people who chose honesty over convenience, growth over comfort, and love that stands without disguise.